Hello, sleepy soul. Welcome to Midnight Talks. I'm your storyteller tonight, your host in the dark. If you enjoy the tales I whisper, don't forget to subscribe so I don't get lost in this endless crowd. Now, let's begin our story. At exactly 11 p.m., the town of Blackridge went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet, the kind that feels like the world is holding its breath. Ethan Mercer noticed it first while locking the front door of his apartment. The hallway clock outside his unit had stopped ticking. The second hand hovered between numbers like it was afraid to move. He checked his phone. 11 p.m., no notifications, no signal bars, no countdown reminders. On New Year's Eve, that felt wrong. Outside the window, the streets were lit but deserted. Decorations hung from lampposts. Banners read, "Happy New Year" in faded gold letters. Confetti lay scattered across the sidewalks like it had fallen hours ago and been abandoned. This town never slept on New Year's Eve. He opened the window. No music, no laughter, no fireworks warming up. Just wind moving through empty streets. His phone buzzed. One notification. A message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't be alone at 11. Ethan's chest tightened. He typed back asking who this was. The message never delivered. Instead, another notification appeared. "We only have 1 hour this time." He shut the window and grabbed his jacket. The lobby was empty when he stepped out. The elevator display flickered between floors, even though it wasn't moving. Someone had scratched deep lines into the wall near the exit. Not graffiti, not words. Tally marks. Dozens of them. Outside the building, a few people had gathered at the intersection. Not celebrating, just standing. Silent, confused, like they had all stepped out at the same moment without knowing why. A woman clutched her phone with shaking hands. She kept dialing the same number again and again. A man in a party hat stared at the sky like he was waiting for something to fall. Ethan approached them. "Did your clock stop too?" he asked. They looked at him all at once. The woman nodded slowly. "They stopped last year too." Ethan laughed nervously. "Last year," she swallowed, "at 11. Same as tonight." The streetlight above them flickered. For half a second, the world dimmed. When the light came back on the man in the party hat, was gone. No scream, no footsteps, no trace. Just empty space where someone had been standing. The woman let out a broken sound and dropped her phone. Across town, the old New Year bell rang once. It hadn't rung in 20 years. Every phone in the street lit up at the same time. A single message appeared on every screen. "The countdown has begun." Ethan looked up at the clock tower at the end of the street. The digital display glowed red. 12 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. Then it flickered and changed. 11:59:59. The second hand started moving backward. And somewhere in Blackridge, someone screamed as the sky above the town froze mid-firework. The scream didn't echo. It just stopped, like someone had pressed mute on the world. Ethan spun toward the sound, but the street was empty again. The people who had been standing beside him moments ago were now scattered farther apart. Not running, not hiding, drifting, as if the town had gently rearranged them. His phone vibrated in his hand. 11:47 p.m. That wasn't right. He looked back at the clock tower. The red numbers still moved backward 1 second at a time. The air felt thicker now, like walking through fog, even though the night was clear. A teenage boy stood in the middle of the road, staring at his own reflection in a car window. "It's wrong," the boy whispered. "It's not me." Ethan followed his gaze. In the glass, the boy's reflection was smiling. The real boy was not. The reflection raised its hand and pressed its palm against the glass from the inside. The boy staggered backward, and the reflection didn't. It stayed there, watching. Across the street, the woman from earlier was crying softly. She kept repeating a name under her breath. Ethan asked who she was calling. "My husband," she said. "We came here last New Year. He was right next to me." Ethan asked what his name was. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her face twisted in panic. "I knew it. I swear I knew it." She scrolled through her phone contacts. Dozens of names. None of them familiar to her anymore. Her phone buzzed. A photo notification. It showed last year's New Year's celebration. Fireworks over Black Ridge. A smiling couple in the foreground. The woman stared at the image and began shaking. The man beside her in the photo had no face, only smooth skin where features should be. The bell rang again. Twice this time. Ethan's phone changed screens on its own. A timer appeared. Time remaining. 0 hours, 13 minutes. Under it, a sentence faded in slowly. "When the hour ends, someone must stay behind." Panic broke loose. People shouted, ran, knocked on locked doors. Car engines turned over and died instantly. No headlights worked. No radios, no signals. Ethan ran toward the clock tower. Halfway there, the street twisted. Not physically. The buildings stayed the same, but the space between them stretched. The tower felt no closer, no matter how fast he ran. His breathing grew ragged. Suddenly, he wasn't alone. The man in the party hat stood in front of him, alive, smiling. "You see it now," the man said calmly. "The loop." Ethan staggered backward. "You disappeared." The man nodded. "I did. Last cycle." Ethan noticed something wrong with his eyes. They reflected the red glow of the clock, even when he wasn't facing it. "You're not supposed to remember me," the man continued. "That's how it usually works." "Usually?" The man leaned closer. His breath was ice cold. "Every New Year, the town borrows an hour. One perfect hour. But time always takes something back." The party hat began to dissolve like ash. "I stayed behind last time," the man whispered. "And now I don't exist enough to leave." The bell rang again. Ethan blinked. The man was gone. The street snapped back to normal length. The clock tower was suddenly only steps away. Ethan reached the base and looked up. Carved into the stone were hundreds of names. 11:30 p.m. A new message appeared. "This is the moment when people choose wrong." Behind him, the town screamed. The town no longer felt empty. It felt aware. Ethan stood at the base of the clock tower, unable to look away from the carved names. They weren't arranged alphabetically or by date. Some were deep and clean, like they had been cut with care. Others were shallow and uneven, like the person carving them had been shaking. At the very bottom was the empty space, waiting. His phone vibrated again. 11:15 p.m. The timer underneath had stopped counting down. Instead, it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. People began gathering around the tower, drawn by instinct, or fear, or memory they didn't fully understand yet. A middle-aged man pushed through the crowd. His eyes were bloodshot like he hadn't slept in years. "It's starting early," he muttered. "That's bad." Ethan grabbed him. "You know what this is." The man hesitated, then nodded once. "My name is Victor," he said. "I've lived this hour 7 times." The crowd went silent. Victor touched the stone of the tower gently, like it might bite him. "The first time you think it's a disaster. The second time you think it's a prank. By the third time you start noticing patterns." "What patterns?" Ethan asked. Victor pointed at the names. "Those crossed out made it to the new year. The ones half erased tried to cheat. A woman near them laughed hysterically. Cheat what? Victor turned to her. The choice. The word echoed heavier than it should have. Ethan noticed something strange. Some of the names looked familiar. He couldn't place where he knew them from, but the feeling was deep and uncomfortable, like recognizing someone in a dream. Victor continued. At exactly 11:15, the town reminds us what it wants. The bell rang 3 times. The ground trembled slightly. Cracks formed in the road around the tower, spreading like veins. The air shifted. Memories flooded back into Ethan's mind uninvited. A different street, different clothes, fireworks exploding normally, him laughing, standing next to someone, a woman, her face blurred but the warmth was real, her hand in his, her voice counting down. 10, 9. Ethan gasped and staggered backward. He had been here before, not just last year, many times. The woman from earlier screamed suddenly. I remember him. She collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. His name was Daniel, my husband. They took him at 11:15. Her phone lit up. A new image replaced the faceless photo. Daniel now stood beside her smiling. But behind him was the clock tower, and carved above his head was his name, crossed out. The bell rang again. Victor spoke quickly now. The town doesn't pick randomly. It feeds on attachment. Whoever is least anchored stays behind. Anchored to what? Ethan asked. Victor looked at him sadly. The future. A man tried to run. As soon as he crossed the street light at the edge of the square, his body slowed, not stopped, stretched. Like time itself was pulling him apart frame by frame. His scream dropped in pitch until it vanished entirely. When he disappeared, the timer jumped. Time remaining, 0 hours, 45 minutes. The crowd understood then. Someone leaving early made things worse. Panic turned ugly. People accused, pointed, clung to each other. Couples refused to let go. Strangers begged to be remembered. Ethan backed away from the chaos. His head throbbed as more memories leaked through. Different endings, different faces missing, different names at the bottom of the tower. Always one. Victor grabbed Ethan's arm. You're important. Ethan shook his head. I don't remember choosing. That's because you didn't, Victor said. You stayed. The words landed like a knife. Victor leaned closer. Every cycle you make it to midnight. Every cycle someone else doesn't. And every cycle the tower saves a space for you. Ethan looked back at the empty stone. His name wasn't there. Yet. The bell rang 5 times. The sky darkened unnaturally fast. Fireworks frozen above the town began to crack like glass. Ethan's phone buzzed again. A final message appeared. 11 minutes remain. Choose who will be remembered. Behind him, the crowd slowly turned toward the tower, and toward him. No one spoke at first. They just looked at Ethan, the way people look at a door they might have to break through. The crowd shifted slowly, forming a loose circle around him. Not aggressively, not yet, but the distance between them and him closed just enough to feel deliberate. Victor stepped in front of Ethan. Don't do this, he warned them. It doesn't work like that. A man near the edge of the circle laughed bitterly. You said it feeds on attachment, so we cut the attachment. Another voice followed. If he's been through this before, then he knows how to survive it. Ethan's mouth felt dry. I don't remember choosing anyone. Victor turned to him quietly. You don't remember because remembering would destroy you. The bell rang once. The clock tower glowed brighter. The empty space at the bottom of the carved names darkened like fresh stone ready to be cut. Ethan's phone buzzed. A new message appeared. You promised you would stop. His heart slammed against his ribs. A woman stepped forward from the crowd. She didn't look panicked. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. I was wondering when you'd remember me, she said softly. The sound of her voice unlocked something in Ethan's chest. Her face sharpened in his memory. The warmth, the laughter, the countdowns. Claire, he whispered. The crowd murmured. Victor's face drained of color. No, he said. She's not supposed to be here. Claire smiled sadly. Neither are you, Victor. Ethan took a step toward her. You died. Claire shook her head. I stayed. The words echoed horribly. She glanced at the tower. 11-7. This is when I always come back. Ethan's memories crashed fully into place. Claire standing beside him years ago when the town celebration failed. The deal made him panic. The promise whispered at the base of the tower, 1 life for 1 hour. Every year. Claire reached out but stopped just short of touching him. You told me you'd fix it, that you'd break the loop, that next year no one would have to stay. Victor shouted, She's part of the mechanism now. Claire turned her eyes to him. And you're not. Victor fell silent. The crowd pressed closer. A woman screamed that she had a child at home. A man begged to be remembered by name. Someone grabbed Ethan's jacket, and Victor shoved them away. Claire looked at Ethan with unbearable calm. The town won't accept strangers anymore, she said. It needs someone who belongs to you. Ethan felt sick. No. You already did it once, Claire replied. You chose me. The bell rang again. Ethan screamed that he would stay this time. The tower responded immediately. The empty stone carved his name halfway down. Ethan Mercer. Only half the letters. Then the carving stopped. The timer froze. Claire gasped. Victor stared in horror. It's rejecting you. The town trembled violently. Buildings groaned. The frozen fireworks began falling. Claire backed away, shaking her head. It can't take you anymore. You're anchored. To what? Ethan shouted. Claire's voice broke. To me. Her phone buzzed. A single message. Replacement accepted. The crowd surged forward. Victor grabbed Ethan. Run! Claire met Ethan's eyes one last time. I'm tired, she whispered. The bell rang 7 times, and the world began to tear. The bell did not stop ringing. It rang until the sound lost meaning and became pressure inside Ethan's skull. Time snapped. The world lurched violently backward. Ethan found himself standing at the edge of the square again. The crowd was smaller now. Some faces were gone, some were new. His phone vibrated. 11 p.m. The loop had reset, but something was different. The carved name on the tower remained. Claire Harper, not crossed out, not erased, finished. Ethan stumbled forward, choking on air. Victor was there, instantly gripping his arm. Don't say her name, he warned. If you do, it remembers you better. Ethan's throat burned. She stayed. Victor nodded. She always does. Ethan shook his head. No, this time it was real. It accepted her. Victor didn't answer. Around them, the town behaved like nothing was wrong. Decorations shimmered. Doors opened. People laughed faintly like echoes of a celebration playing on a distant speaker. But the laughter looped. The same phrase repeating. The same toast. The same cheer. Ethan saw a group clinking glasses again and again without drinking. They're recordings, Victor said. Time keeps the surface. We're underneath. Ethan noticed his reflection in a shop window. He was older, not by years, by exhaustion. Victor led him down a side street where the sound of the bell was softer. There were more tally marks here scratched into walls and sidewalks. Some buildings were almost completely covered. "How long has this been happening?" Ethan asked. Victor exhaled. "Since the town was founded, it burns one person every year to stabilize a transition." "Burns." Victor stopped walking. "Stay. Sacrifice. Erase. The word doesn't matter." Ethan's phone buzzed again. A photo. Claire standing alone at the base of the tower. She looked solid. Real. Underneath it read, "Angkor confirmed." Ethan collapsed to his knees. Victor crouched beside him. "She isn't alive anymore. She's a junction." Ethan laughed weakly. "She talked to me." Victor nodded. "It uses what you love. That's the cruelty." They heard screaming. "A child this time!" Ethan ran. At the square, a little girl stood crying, clutching a balloon frozen mid-bounce. Her mother screamed at the tower, begging it to take her instead. The tower didn't respond. The girl's shadow stretched unnaturally long toward the stone, then snapped upward. The child vanished. Her balloon dropped. The timer appeared over the square. Time stabilized. The crowd fell silent. Ethan screamed until his voice broke. Victor whispered, "It always takes innocence if the anchor is weak." Ethan looked at Claire's name. "You said it won't accept me anymore." Ethan said slowly, "What happens if no one is anchored?" Victor's face hardened. Then the hour collapses. Ethan stood. For the first time since the loop began, his fear faded, replaced by clarity. "Then let it collapse." Victor grabbed him. "That destroys the town." Ethan met his eyes. It already did. The bell rang once. Claire's name began to crack. Ethan felt her presence surge around him like a final embrace. His phone buzzed. "This is your last chance to undo it." Ethan stepped toward the tower. The clock above flickered wildly. 10:59 p.m. time was slipping. Victor whispered, "If you break it, you don't exist after midnight." Ethan didn't stop walking. "I know." Behind him, the town screamed as the hour began to fracture. Time didn't jump. It bled. The numbers on the clock tower slid instead of ticking, smearing red light across the stone like something wounded. The sky fractured into layered versions of itself, each one showing a different stage of celebration that never finished. Ethan reached the tower steps. They were longer than they should have been. Each step carried weight, not physical, but emotional, like walking through memories that weren't fully his anymore. Victor followed him, but kept his distance. "The closer you get, the more it fights back." Ethan's phone buzzed again. 10:45 p.m. The countdown had reversed past safety. The tower door stood open now, breathing cold air into the square. Inside, darkness folded inward like it had depth. Ethan stepped inside. The sound vanished. No bell, no wind, no voices, only the slow echo of his own heartbeat. The walls were lined with names, thousands of them, some glowing faintly, some scratched out violently, some still forming as if carved by invisible hands. At the center of the chamber stood the bell. It was smaller than Ethan expected, cracked, bound with chains that looked older than metal. Claire stood beside it, not solid, not a ghost. She looked like a memory that refused to fade. "You came earlier this time," she said gently. Ethan swallowed. "I'm ending it." Claire nodded. "I know." She touched the bell, and the room trembled. "This bell doesn't mark time," she said. "It divides it." Ethan remembered Victor's eyes, the reflections. "What is Victor?" Ethan asked. Claire's expression darkened. "Victor stayed too long." The truth rushed in. Victor wasn't surviving the loop. He was maintaining it. "The town needs a keeper," Claire continued. "Someone half inside the hour, half outside." Ethan turned. Victor stood in the doorway watching them. "I tried to leave," Victor said quietly. "Once." Ethan noticed Victor didn't cast a shadow anymore. "The bell needs a hand," Victor continued. "Someone to ring it when the hour threatens to spill." Ethan clenched his fists. "So you let people die." Victor nodded without defense. "So millions don't." Claire shook her head. "That's the lie it tells you." The bell rang on its own. Chains snapped tight. Outside the tower, the town screamed as buildings folded into themselves, and streets doubled back in impossible loops. Ethan felt time pulling at him from every direction. His phone vibrated violently. "Midnight approaching without stability." Claire stepped closer. "If you destroy the bell, the hour ends forever," Victor shouted, "and every year tied to it collapses." Ethan looked at the names. At Claire. At the child's balloon rolling across the square outside. "How many years?" Ethan asked. Victor's voice was barely audible. "All of them." Ethan placed his hand on the bell. It was warm, alive. Claire whispered, "If you ring it one last time, you replace Victor." Ethan looked at her. "And you?" She smiled sadly. "I finally disappear." The bell cracked further. Time howled. Ethan made his choice. The moment Ethan touched the striker, the bell stopped screaming, not ringing. Screaming. The sound collapsed inward like a breath being pulled back into lungs that no longer needed it. Time froze. Every crack in the tower walls halted mid-spread. Outside the doorway, the town hung in a fractured stillness. Fireworks paused like glass flowers in the sky. Victor exhaled. For the first time since Ethan had known him, Victor looked human. "You don't have to do this," Victor said quietly. Ethan didn't look at him. His hand rested against the bell, and he could feel it pulsing slowly. A heartbeat not his own. "You never did either," Ethan replied. Victor smiled weakly. "Someone always does." Claire stepped closer. Her outline flickered. "This is what it feels like," she said. "To belong to the hour." Ethan met her eyes. "I won't forget you." Claire shook her head. "You already will." The bell demanded weight, not force. Commitment. Ethan raised the striker. When it fell, the sound did not travel outward. It traveled through him. Memories poured in like floodwater. Every new year, every choice, every person who had begged, every name carved and erased. Ethan collapsed to his knees as the hour wrapped around him. Victor screamed, not in pain, in relief. The chains shattered. Victor's body blurred like a reflection in disturbed water. "You'll feel it soon," Victor said as his voice faded. "The loneliness is worse than the fear." Then he was gone, not erased, released. The bell sealed itself. Ethan stood slowly. He was alone inside the tower now. Outside, time restarted. The clock jumped. 11:58 p.m., too close. Ethan stepped to the doorway. The town resumed movement, but something was wrong. People moved slightly out of sync. Their shadows lagged behind. Their voices echoed before words were spoken. The hour was alive. Ethan felt it tug at him constantly. Requests, demands, adjustments. Someone slipped on ice that wasn't there. Ethan thought of balance, and the person caught themselves. A firework fell. Ethan thought of height, and it floated back up. Power settled into his bones. So did guilt. His phone appeared in his hand, not vibrating, waiting. A single message blinked. "Maintenance required." Claire appeared beside him one last time. Her face was calm now. "They won't know you saved them," she said. Ethan nodded. "I don't need them to." She smiled faintly. "You'll stop aging soon." Ethan swallowed. "And you?" "I'll finally be nowhere," she replied. The bell rang softly. Claire faded like breath on cold glass. Midnight arrived without celebration. No cheer, no countdown, no joy, just transition. The clock struck 12 a.m. The town crossed over. Ethan did not. His reflection in the glass of the tower window stared back at him, eyes glowing faintly red. No shadow. The keeper of 11. What time leaves behind? Years passed, not outside, inside Ethan. Every new year came and went like a blink that lasted forever. He watched them all. The town celebrated again. New decorations, new faces, new laughter layered over old echoes. People kissed at midnight without knowing why the air felt heavier for a second. Ethan stood in the tower, unseen, unremembered. The hour tugged at him constantly now. Small corrections, tiny trades, a trip avoided, a heart attack delayed, a drunk driver stopping at a red light for no reason at all. Each correction cost something: a pet lost, a memory faded, a name forgotten. Balance. That was the word the hour whispered. Ethan stopped counting years when numbers lost meaning. Sometimes the hour showed him things, possible endings, cities collapsing if he refused, families erased if he hesitated. It learned his fears and used them carefully. One year the bell cracked again, a warning. Ethan felt the presence before he saw it. A child stood at the edge of the square staring up at the tower, not crying, not afraid, watching. She looked directly at Ethan. She could see him. Ethan stepped back instinctively. The girl smiled. "You look tired," she said. The hour recoiled. Ethan felt it pull away from her like something burned. "Who are you?" Ethan asked. The girl tilted her head. "Someone who remembers." Memory was dangerous. The bell trembled violently. The hour whispered urgently, "Remove her." Ethan felt the old reflex rise, the keeper's instinct. He forced it down. The girl walked closer. With each step, the town around her blurred slightly. "You weren't the first," she said, "and you won't be the last." Ethan's voice was hoarse. "What are you?" She glanced at the names on the tower. A remainder. She reached out and touched the stone. Names flared, hundreds of them. Faces filled Ethan's mind, not sacrifices, prisoners. "You traded endings for continuity," she said. "But time doesn't forgive debt." The bell screamed. Cracks raced up the tower walls. The hour fought back harder than ever. The girl stepped into the tower. The door slammed shut behind her. For the first time since becoming keeper, Ethan felt fear again. Real fear. The clock flickered. 11:59 p.m. The girl smiled gently. Midnight is coming wrong again. The last minute. The tower shook so hard the stone screamed. Cracks split open like mouths all along the walls. Names peeled away from the surface and floated in the air, spinning slowly like ash caught in a draft. The hour was panicking. Ethan felt it thrashing inside him, pulling at every memory, every correction he had ever made. Balance is breaking. Debt is due. The girl stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber. "You can feel it now," she said, "what it's like when time realizes it's losing." Ethan clenched his fists. "You did this." She nodded. "I was sent." "By who?" She looked at the bell. "By the part of time that doesn't loop." The clock outside screamed. 11:59:30. Ethan's phone appeared again, burning hot in his hand. Message after message flooded the screen. "Remove anomaly. Sacrifice required. Keeper failure imminent." Ethan dropped the phone. "No more," he said. The girl stepped closer. With every step, Ethan felt the hour weaken. "You were never meant to save it," she said. "You were meant to witness it end." The bell began ringing on its own. violently now. Each strike erased something. A building outside vanished. A year disappeared from Ethan's memory. Claire's face flickered. The girl touched his chest. "You're not the keeper anymore." The words felt impossible. The chains snapped back into existence, wrapping around the bell and around Ethan. Pain unlike anything he had known tore through him. The hour tried to reclaim control. Outside, people froze mid-celebration. Fireworks reversed. The countdown screamed. 10, Ethan saw Victor for a brief second, smiling sadly. 9, he saw Claire standing where the tower once was. 8, he saw the child taken at 11. 7, every sacrifice, every lie. 6, the girl whispered, "You can end this, or you can replace it." 5, Ethan laughed through tears. "There's always a replacement." 4, the tower began collapsing inward. 3, Ethan pulled against the chains. "I choose neither." 2, the girl's eyes widened. "No one ever does." 1, Ethan tore himself free. The bell shattered. Silence swallowed everything. No midnight, no transition, no time. Just darkness. And then breathing. After midnight, Ethan opened his eyes. There was no pain, no sound, no weight, just stillness. He lay on cold ground beneath a sky that looked unfinished, like someone had stopped painting it halfway through. The stars were wrong. Too few, too dim. He sat up slowly. The clock tower was gone. The town was gone. Blackridge no longer existed. In its place stood an empty field with frost-bitten grass, and a single road cutting through it like a scar. A sign leaned crooked at the roadside. "Welcome to Blackridge." Underneath it, someone had scratched another line. Population 0, Ethan stood. He felt different. Not alive, not dead, untethered. He looked at his hands. They were solid, but light passed through them just slightly, like he wasn't fully aligned with the world anymore. Footsteps crunched behind him. He turned. The girl stood a few feet away. She looked smaller now, younger, almost normal. "It's over," Ethan said. She shook her head gently. "It's finished." "What's the difference?" She looked up at the sky. "Over implies it can start again." Ethan exhaled. Memories flooded him all at once. The sacrifices weren't erased. They were released. Time surged forward violently to compensate. Years stacked onto seconds. Ethan saw cities grow, wars begin and end. Children born who would never know the name Blackridge. The hour died, but something had to hold the seam where it tore. The pull, not of time, of between. "You broke the mechanism," the girl said. "So now you become the margin." Ethan laughed softly. "I traded one prison for another." She shook her head. "No, you chose." The wind moved across the empty field carrying faint echoes. Laughter, fireworks, a countdown that never reached 0. Ethan felt Claire's presence beside him. Not a vision, a warmth, a memory allowed to rest. "I'm not alone," he said. The girl smiled. "That's why it worked." She stepped backward. With each step, she faded. "What are you now?" Ethan asked. She paused. "The future," she replied. Then she was gone. Ethan stood at the edge of the road. Cars passed occasionally, but slowed without reason when they reached the field. Drivers felt uneasy, couldn't explain why. Some pulled over. Some remembered something they couldn't name. Some looked at their clocks at 11:59 p.m. every year and felt afraid. Ethan remained, not aging, not living, watching, waiting. Every new year, someone somewhere would feel the urge to count slower, to hesitate at 1, to wonder what comes after midnight. And somewhere between seconds, Ethan would be there, making sure the countdown never stole another life. The wind whispered through the empty field. For the first time in centuries, time moved forward.